anticipation for the opponent they have been waiting for. You can also feel the supreme confidence, not the doubt that used to accompany a huge game here. These folks do not believe LSU can lose. Now the Gators tonight, they arrive a little bit wounded. They were stunned in the swamp by Auburn last week. We're going to hear from Florida's leaders on the chances of repeating last season's post-Auburn recovery. The Gators joined in the one-loss club by other title contenders. We'll tell you who's got the best shot of staying in the hunt. And all of history's legendary backs, Barry, Bo, Herschel, Ricky, all of them have been eclipsed by college football's little big man. We'll meet him. Here in Baton Rouge, laissez la bon temps rouler. Let the good times roll as College Game Day rolls back down here to the Bayou.
Well, we're coming to your city. Well, we through Oklahoma, Alabama, and through Georgia, trying to get on down to Florida for the game. And then we loaded up our tailgate, joined a convoy on the freeway, headed north to see them Buckeyes of Notre Dame. Victory for USC, Bulldogs barking at the Wolverine. Look on horns and give me that Rocky Top Tennessee.
32 down, set. You love football, you know what's next. You got it locked on ESPN. Tell your family and friends, cause Fowler, Corso, and Herb Street got the lowdown on the rivalries. Buckle your chin strap, you're ready to play. It's time to kick off College Game Day.
Come out to your city. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, if you want a little zing in your zang zang, if you want a little ting in your tang tang, yeah, we're coming to your city.
College Game Day is built by the Home Depot, proud sponsor of college football's premier pregame show.
And welcome to LSU. 10 hours to kickoff, which means that pregame preparations have been underway about 72 hours. Nowhere do they prepare for a big game like they do down here in the Bayou. And make no mistake, this is a big game. Number 9, Florida beat the Bayou Bengals a year ago in the swamp. Now, LSU gets Florida here in their own swamp, where the weather has been very rainy and thunderstorms are in the area. A chance of rain again tonight inside Tiger Stadium. And welcome to College Game Day. Back here in Baton Rouge, we were here 4 weeks ago when LSU crushed Virginia Tech. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, and Desmond Howard will join us. You cannot escape the feeling of confidence in the air. They believe that they're just a couple of wins away from headed down the road and playing for the national title in New Orleans.
Well,
you can feel it.
You're absolutely right, because LSU has a nationally ranked team. But let me tell you something, what I'm excited about. The Golden Band of Tigerland, nationally ranked. I can't wait to see them perform
I can't wait to see Mike.
Yeah, Mike,
the new Tiger. I also want to see if Chris Fowler can make it through 2 hours without sweating through a suit. That's a goal today, right? I mean,
I went to the dark suit. It was ugly here. I learned from my mistakes. I want to see if you're going to have the courage to pick the road underdog for a third straight week. Now, you called Georgia and Cal.
Yeah.
1 hour and 57 minutes from now, we'll find out about that'll be a test of courage. Now, the Gators, of course, stumbled a week ago. LSU kind of staggered early. They kind of dodged the huge upset bid. They won going away over LSU. Matt Flynn, intentional grounding in the end zone was a safety. Andre Anderson put LSU in a 9-7 hole. But then Charles Scott came off the bench, a couple of touchdowns. And now, after a 34-9 win, they are 8 wins away from headed down to the Superdome for a second time in the championship game. Tim Tebow and the Gators struggled. Auburn's Patrick Lee, the interception. Tebow tied the game with a run, but after they froze him with a timeout, here comes Wes Byram of the Tigers. Icy, banging that 45-yard field goal through. He taunts the Gators with that chop, and Auburn stuns Florida. That's a surprise twist in the plot for this showdown of heavyweights, but really, it doesn't affect Florida's backdrop for this game all that much. If they win, check the polls. They're right back in the national championship chase. And even if they lose, they're still going to be a factor in the SEC East race. The Tigers have not lost since that self-destruction in the swamp a year ago. Since then, 12 straight wins, and they've won 16 in a row here at home.
Picked off by Craig Stelz.
I guess it's about, I don't say it's revenge, just redemption of a loss. I think that was our last loss, so, I mean, in a way, we're just trying to focus on them and, and come out with the victory.
We're going to try to get better, and everyone's well aware of where we're at as a team. Our guys aren't ignorant. Our guys are very well aware of what they need to win a game, so we just have to get better.
Dorsey!
It's about two teams coming together, mano a mano, man on man, and just it comes down to just beating the man in front of you. There's a big game, they're going to bring their A game and we're going to bring ours.
So straight ahead, touchdown.
What's great about the SEC is you're going to have a big game, and win or lose, you got to turn around and you're going to have another big game.
This is just one of the matchups on Gut Check Saturday. 6 of them featuring ranked teams. That's an enormous number. 102nd Red River Shootout. First time in a decade. Both OU and Texas come in off a loss. Missouri and Nebraska, an intriguing game. The games involving Big 12, Big East, ACC, Big 10, and of course the SEC. But those rankings, those are just numbers in a column, and it's not the really important column. The games today are about a lot more than just validating a pollster's opinion. It's about teams testing themselves, perhaps for the first time. Much will be revealed today about unbeatens like Purdue and Ohio State, Cincinnati, Kansas, Missouri. And there's also much to be proven by the teams that staggered. Coming back from those shocking losses, Oklahoma, Texas, Clemson, and of course, Florida. So that's why we're calling this Gut Check Saturday. You buy in?
Yeah, I do buy in, Chris, because I think it's not only what's at stake as far as standings and as far as the polls are concerned. The big thing is I want to see how teams react to either big wins or tough losses. If you look at Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Rutgers, West Virginia, of course, what kind of grit do they have? What kind of the intangibles will they show in today after losing last week and getting shocked? And on the other side of it, Auburn, Colorado, Illinois, Maryland, emotional upsets last week. Do they show the maturity to be able to handle that and come back for a second week in a row? We're going to learn a lot, as Chris touched on, not only about where they stand, but what these teams are really made out of.
And Kirk, I suggest out there for college football fans, don't get too excited if your team's undefeated or too sad if they lost a game or two. There's a lot of football to be played. And taking it into the baseball area, the Phillies and Rockies came from nowhere to make the playoffs. There's a lot of football to be played. You never know what happens in college football.
But those Rockies.
Colorado Rockies, for example.
Won 13 of the last 4.
You're telling these folks not to be excited because they're undefeated? Forget about it. And teams not to be mad when they lose? That's just human nature. But football players got to overcome human nature.
I had a guy tell me last night, he's lived in Baton Rouge his entire life. He said this is the biggest game ever in Tiger Stadium. There have been some big games. He thinks this is the biggest game ever. And he's been an LSU fan. He's AARP, too. So
we're going to talk about which teams really got punished by those losses last week, which teams are still in pretty good shape, and which teams are ready to redeem themselves today. So a lot to talk about on Gut Check Saturday, and they are excitedly, forget about it. They're plenty excited about their team being #1 in the AP for the first time in a long time. We invite you to add your opinion to the chorus. Go to ESPN.com. You can chat with Desmond Howard. We'll take the temperature about what's going on around the country. You can vote on all kinds of topics. Who you think is going to win this ball game down here in the Bayou tonight? Of course, we're just getting started. LSU did jump over USC. Slim margin in the AP poll, but which team is really better? Bayou Bengals or the men of Troy? We'll talk about that difference of opinion here. Last year, Florida turned an Auburn loss into a national title run. Can the Gators do the same thing again? The players will lay it on the line. Plus, training with soldiers headed for war. How one day changed a football team forever. The amazing story coming up on College Game Day from Baton Rouge. Just getting started.
College Game Day is built by the Home Depot and in part by Kingsford Charcoal. This game day, grab your friends and family and fire up the grill. It's time to bring the tailgate home. And BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
All right, welcome back to Baton Rouge. We'll talk plenty about the Bayou Bengals and the Gators coming up, but time to start chewing on the best lineup of games so far this season, what we're calling a gut check Saturday here. Stop me if you heard this before in the Big Ten. You got an upstart, quote, second-tier team off to a great start. The fans are full of enthusiasm. Now here comes a heavyweight tonight, and the lights are shining bright on the Boilermakers, but we've seen this before.
We have
seen this before.
You know, I think Purdue's been waiting for this opportunity since the time Game Day was there. It's 2004 against Wisconsin for Ohio State. A lot to be put on number 17, Todd Beckman. Can he respond on the road for just the third time in his career? He's off to a good start this year. Now, Purdue comes after quarterbacks. They have a quarterback of their own in Curtis Painter who can make it happen. See how Ohio State Lee today plays defensively, because I think Curtis Painter, probably the top quarterback in the Big Ten. He'll come after him through the air.
And how about Oklahoma, Texas, in Dallas? If Texas is going to win this game, they're going to have to outscore the Sooners. Colt McCoy threw for 200 yards last week. After throwing, they go to Jamal Charles, who can run the football. Oklahoma's famed defense was exposed by Colorado. Texas has got a chance.
Yeah, the Big 12 North no longer a punchline, Coach. Big one up there. Two struggling defenses. Missouri, Nebraska trying to get the offenses off the field. Chase Daniel has weapons galore, including his own feet. Martin Rucker's a good tight end, the brother of the ex-Husker. Huge game with Big 12 North championship implications here. We'll talk much more about this offensive shootout.
Big game in the Big East tonight on ESPN2 at 8 o'clock Eastern. Should be interesting to see how Cincinnati plays. Are they for real? Their defense has been tenacious. Last 4 games, only allowed 59 yards a game on the ground. They'll be coming after Ray Rice, which means Mike Teal again. He's been great so far. He'll have to step up big time for the Scarlet Knights.
And how about Virginia Tech and Clemson? Virginia Tech's offense struggled last week against North Carolina, but they won Tech style. Defense, forcing turnovers. Clemson's is undefeated at home, but Virginia Tech is going to bring their A game tonight. This is going to be a good one.
Well, the Tigers have been waiting for this game because last year they got physically smashed. A short week. They're coming off the big win against the Yellow Jackets. They could get nothing going on the ground there. Davis and Spiller held in check, and Brandon Orr behind that big offensive line. They just smashed Clemson. He ran for 203. I mean, they were manhandled on the road. They've waited a year to pay them back. And Clemson, history says, very effective the next year at paying back teams for a loss. But can they kick a field goal if they need it? Mark Buckholz, he missed 4 out of 5 last week in that loss. That was why they lost to Georgia Tech. He played in the soccer team the night before. He played in the soccer game again last night. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying it's
football or soccer. I mean,
yeah, make up your mind.
He better make the kick.
Pick a sport.
Make the kick.
I wouldn't let him play soccer, that's for sure.
That's especially when you miss kicks like that. Again, Clemson, we love you, but you need a psychiatrist. You really do, because we just can't ever figure you out. You got lulled to sleep last week by Georgia Tech. Now you come back home at night. You're going to be all excited. You're taking on Virginia Tech. And that's the thing to me is Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback from Virginia Tech, is he ready for this atmosphere? Is he ready for the climate and what he's going to have to endure when Clemson comes after him? I think you're going to see a lot of Brandon Orr running, but I don't know if there's enough there from the quarterback position yet from Virginia Tech. So, again, tough to figure out Clemson. But I'm going to go with the Tigers at home to beat Virginia Tech.
That's a good pick, but I don't like that pick. I'm telling you why. I like Virginia Tech, and let me tell you why. Number one, they're one of the best teams in the nation on special teams. Clemson's performance was one of the worst special teams performance in the history of college football. So I'm going with defense, special teams, and that kid Taylor going. Virginia Tech upsets Clemson.
Okay.
One of the worst. Did you see the Texas game last week against Kansas State? Allowing 2 returns for a touchdown?
Yeah.
All right, so a difference of opinion here. Tyrod Taylor, interesting situation.
He's got the ability. He's just young. See how he handles it.
He's got Clemson's defense worried, but he is very young. Interesting day in the ACC because it's old versus new loyalties. Of course, Ralph Friedgen and his Maryland team off the big win, hosting his former school where he was a coordinator. Chuck Amato is part of the staff at Florida State. Of course, he would love to pay back NC State for firing him. And, of course, Butch Davis. They don't have a lot of Carolina yet. Here come the Hurricanes.
Well, I think of those 3 opportunities, the bottom of the screen there, Chuck Amato as an assistant now has the best chance. The other 2 coaches, I don't know if North Carolina is ready for Miami yet.
And well said. And Chuck Amato was quoted this week in saying in the Tallahassee paper he loves those North Carolina State players.
Sure
he ought to recruit them.
Yeah.
That'll be an emotional game for Chuck Amato.
Yep.
You think it's his alma mater.
Yeah.
But you think he'd like to beat NC State?
Oh, absolutely.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
All right, we'll talk next about some powerhouse programs that were saddled with an early season in defeat. We talked a little bit about it. Oklahoma, Oregon, West Virginia, Texas. Reveal the best one-loss team in the country. Who's got the best chance of bouncing back? Who's in a little bit of trouble? And the new number one on the team in the land, LSU, is looking good. Find out which Tiger is a ringer for a Hollywood heartthrob. The ladies of LSU might want to pay attention to this segment coming up. College Game Day from Baton Rouge. And we're happy that College Game Day is presented in beautiful high definition, presented by Pioneer. The better to see the beads of sweat in our face. Not much clarity in the championship chase after all the insanity of last Saturday.
The Scarlet Knights might be headed for their first loss.
Fires a little. That ball's intercepted. Touchdown, Kansas State.
Bulls beat West Virginia 21-13.
The biggest victory in school history.
And it is good! Good! As time expires, Colorado wins 27-24. Bedlam here at Boulder. See you later, alligator! Tigers win! The Tigers have come to the swamp and made it their own.
See you later, alligator. That's a popular local radio call here in Baton Rouge. Here are the top 15 teams with one loss. Kentucky, bye-bye, not quite ready for the bright lights of the top 10, beaten by the Gamecocks. They should move into the top 10. But those numbers to the left, they are important because that's the AP ranking, even though it's not part of the BCS. The other polls are the computer rankings. Who's got the best chance of recovering and bouncing back after a loss? History says you can stumble in September and get back into it. Of course, in 2003, USC lost at Cal late September, went on to win the Rose Bowl. They won a piece of the title, shared it with LSU. They still get a boo down here. 98 the Seminoles. Chris Wenke's school record 6 picks at NC State early in September. For the BCS title, of course, lost to Tennessee. 90 Colorado Buffaloes lost at Illinois in September. Then with the help of that 5th down play at Missouri, let's bring that back, went on to share the national title that year. And way back in '83, what you forget is the Hurricanes lost at Florida big time, went on to shock Nebraska and win the national title in that epic game down there in the Orange Bowl. So you can stumble early and recover if you get some help. Desmond Howard joins us here. That's the key thing, is if LSU and USC keep winning, all the one-loss teams can forget about it. But let's say one of them stumble. Who do you think's in the best chance of getting right back in the championship chase?
Well, CF, when I look at the list of one-loss teams, I have to say, well, what team can bounce back? Now I'm looking at, let's say Cal. Cal beat Oregon. So Oregon is a tough team. A team that, I mean, Cal beat.
Yeah, Cal beat Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. So Oregon's a team that I think they have to have 7 games left, 4 games on the road, 3 at home, 1 against USC. That's a loss for them. Then you go to West Virginia, a team people thought could possibly win the Big East. Well, Pat White's thigh bruise has to be a concern. And you go to, let's say, Florida. The Gators, they have a big obstacle tonight going against the LSU Tigers, the #1 team in the country. So now I have to go to Oklahoma.
Okay.
I think the Sooners have the greatest chance to run the tables because they have a big game against Texas. But if they get past Texas today, they have 6 home games, 1 game on the road, 5 games against teams that they can beat.
Right.
And then Missouri is the biggest game, and that's a home game. So I like Oklahoma's chances of winning.
I agree with you 250%, and I'm going to give you some more reasons. Before last week, Oklahoma outscored their opponents 246-47 in 4 games. In the second half, they got ahead of Colorado 24-7, and they went to sleep. It won't happen again. The last time they lost a game, they lost to Texas. They won 8 straight. Watch them. They're going to do the same thing this year after they're up, awake, Oklahoma.
You and I hope so, because we haven't a national title game, so we're hoping they rebound. I think Oklahoma has to be the obvious big game with Texas. They've got Missouri next week. It is at home, and then they have to go to Lubbock to play Texas Tech. So they have the easiest road to get there. I think Georgia's a team to keep in mind. I know they have Florida coming up later in Jacksonville. I think Georgia's recovered and rebounded. All of a sudden, they have an opportunity. They have a running game. Matthew Stafford continues to impress me with the way he's throwing the football. Their defense, I think, is good enough. I think Georgia is a team to remember, and if Florida Florida gets out of here alive, the Gators kind of trump Georgia at that point. But I would say Georgia, remember the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yep. Well, Gators have so many tough games, but that's a humongous if they get out of here. By the way, you look at the computer rankings, and the BCS standings are going to be released on October 14th after the next week's games, and the computer rankings will factor in there. Oklahoma's out of the top 25 in some of those computer rankings.
Wow.
That's if you use
here we go with
Oregon.
again.
Well, Oregon is the highest kind of ranked team among the computers that have a loss.
Yeah, that's smart.
Interesting. They have, of course, USC. And again,
like
the controversy only heats up if USC and LSU stumble. If they keep winning, a lot of the drama of the season is really been taken out by those losses last week. America votes, and they think, what, Florida has the best chance. Oklahoma, it's an interesting topic, though. Florida has the best chance. I mean, they think they're going to beat LSU?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll go back and revisit that topic.
What does America know? They don't know.
Let's see what they think. Well, Lee's going to put on the headgear at the end of the show, and the crowd will wake up at that point. Stop in Ohio State. This week, the task belongs to Purdue. But this is really a first test for both teams. Buckeyes got out of Washington with a win. A little tougher test, perhaps, under the lights of Ross-Ade Stadium. The answer, who's going to win, coming up next.
ESPNU Energizer Spirit Meter is brought to you by Energizer E-Squared Lithium. Keep going.
Let's get that spirit meter, that DB meter cranked up. Sometimes the DBs at LSU are tied to the BAC. You know what I mean? It gets louder as it gets later and darker. 102 decibels, though. They'll pace themselves. It'll be louder than that for Mr. Tebow and the Gators offense tonight, I can promise you. They hope it's going to be raucous in Ross-Ade Stadium. Tonight, the Buckeyes bring in a streak of 16 straight conference wins. That's one short of a school record. And 23 straight regular season wins into that raucous meeting. It's the first game between these teams in 4 years. And remember, the last 3 meetings, the Buckeyes have scored 10, 16, and 17 points against Purdue. Now, this is a chance for a huge breakthrough win for Joe Tiller and the Boilermakers. They have lost 13 in a row against ranked opponents. Basically, they beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And if the calendar says October, and it does, that means trouble. They're 21-21 under Tiller in October, but in the last 12 October games, they've lost 11. And the one win was over Northwestern. That infamous Kyle Orton fumble, Wisconsin returned for a touchdown. That was part of that. So, a landmark, enormous chance, a great occasion tonight. Right, Coach?
It's not as big in my eyes as I suppose it is in most people's, because I guess due to my experience, you keep everything in perspective. You know, I've already been asked, is this a benchmark game, etc. In my opinion, there's only been one really significant game here at Purdue in my tenure here, and that was our first game with Notre Dame, which we won. My point being is that every game's an important game.
Oh, boiler up. That was not exactly the pep talk we were looking for. The Buckeyes come in with a very good defense, leading the Big Ten in most every category. Number 2 behind LSU in total defense, $198 per game. They've only allowed 36 points in 5 games, allowed just 1 touchdown run and 2 touchdown passes. They get off the field quickly. More than half of opponents' possessions ended in 3 and out. That is outstanding. It's the best in the nation. They also don't allow big plays. Only 1 opponent's run of more than 20 yards, and they are not facing an average offense today. They got a couple of guys dinged on defense. I don't know, Ohio State. What do you think?
Let me tell you something. To beat Ohio State, Purdue better bring their passing game and throw it a lot and very well. And they better bring an A-plus game, because this Ohio State football team is very good. I'm telling you what, Curtis Painter, the quarterback, loves to throw versus man coverage. When he gets man coverage, he hits 8 different receivers for touchdowns this year. And all Purdue receivers can catch the ball very well. Watch the hands as they catch the football. This is a very well-coached offensive football team. This Ohio State team reminds me of the 2002 national title team. Great defense, as Chris said, 36 points in 5 games. Balanced offense, special teams. They win this one big. And you know what? The more I see these guys, I'm not so sure that I've seen a better football team in the country than Ohio State's playing right now.
Against Akron and some of the teams they played at this point, they have looked pretty good. Today's by far Ohio State's biggest test. Today we find out, in fact, if they are deserving of that number 4 ranking. At this point, they haven't had a chance to really show how good they are or whether or not they deserve it. So I think Joe Tiller, the one thing I think he downplayed a bit there is how experienced this team is. 25 seniors. Ohio State going into a hostile environment. They'll put pressure on the quarterback, Beckman. He'll look for number 80, Rubisky, a lot. And then Beanie Wells. This is an opportunity for Beanie Wells, who's been dealing with an ankle injury, to show whether or not he's ready to be the guy in the Ohio State offense. Because let's face it, when you lose Troy Smith, who won the Heisman, 2 wide receivers to the first round, and a starting tailback, you're breaking in all this new talent on offense. It's very difficult, just ask Notre Dame, to start to get things going. So they're going to rely heavily on the running of Beanie Wells. And we'll find out tonight if he's a man and if he's ready to step up, because he's been talking about his ankle for like 2 years now. It's time to step up and play.
You know, Kirk, what really impressed me is they went to Washington and clobbered a Pac-10 football team. They were never in the game. I like this Ohio State
they're
football
good.
team.
They're chanting overrated. Is that for the Buckeyes or the Boilermakers or both? The entire Big Ten.
Big Ten.
I beg to differ, by the way. You saying Ohio State's a complete team? I stayed up late. I checked all these fancy numbers on these. You believe this information we have? They're not very good on special teams. They're not very good in kickoff return, punt return, kickoff coverage. They had a couple kicks blocked. Purdue is a big edge in that area.
This will be a very challenging game. I think Ohio State and Purdue, when they get together, especially in West Lafayette, it always seems to go down to into the fourth quarter.
But Purdue's got to win the kicking game. Don't you think they have a chance? All right, let's go to
Ohio State. Big.
Really? All right, well, let's go to Desmond Howard on the bus. America's opinions count here, too. He's inside there. Been chatting. There's some folks who think the Big Ten is not overrated online there, Desmond?
Yeah, they really are. There are guys who think that these two teams, even though they haven't won any big games, that they're on the top echelon of the conference and in the country. They think that their ranking is quite deserving, especially Ohio State's. When you're dealing with Jim Tressel, he's a coach who's going to figure it out. One of the best coaches in the country. Okay, they beat Youngstown, Akron, but listen, that, like Coach said, that win against Washington on the road was huge. But Purdue, hey, Curtis Painter, they have the best passing offense in the country, in the Big Ten, going against the best passing defense in the Big Ten. So something's got to give tonight, fellas.
You going to make a pick, Des?
I like OSU. I got to go with Jim Tressel. I think they're going to pull off the victory today.
All right. Thanks. We'll check in with you later. Again, America's Vote. You can chirp in on all kinds of topics like who's going to win the big showdown here in Baton Rouge between Florida and LSU. More on College Game Day. We'll talk a little about the SEC when we continue. Well, this week on Confessions of a College Football Junkie, Kirk and I will discuss the anatomy of an upset. How do all these surprises happen? Confessions of a College Football Junkie, exclusive video only available on your AT&T wireless phone. These folks here don't believe in upsets in the making tonight. Les Miles, we use 2 quarterbacks. Of course, Matt Flynn will start. Ryan, he's number 15. Ryan Perlew is number 11. He'll come off the bench. He'll be involved in some red zone situations, and he's very talented as well. Of course, Flynn, the popular guy, he's a senior. He comes from Tyler, Texas, 6'3", 228 communications major, and he's dreamy. Teammates say he looks a lot like the other Matt, actor Matt Damon. Well, what do you think? Matt needs some powder on the right there. His teammates and his coach, they really think that these guys were separated at birth.
Look alike. I can tell you, I think Flynn's much better looking.
He does look just like Matt Damon, and so every time we're watching Matt Damon movie, we'll give him a hard time.
Yes, he does. He looks just like Matt Damon. He don't like it. We always tease him about it. He kind of gets tired of it, but he really does look like Matt Damon.
No, he's just dreamy to the ladies down here at LSU, and especially popular when you win, because they do care if you win. They like it if you're handsome, but it's more important if you win.
On behalf of Matt Flynn, you dropped 2 dreamies on him, and I don't appreciate that at all.
Well, because you always get called dreamy and you don't appreciate it?
That's not a nice word, dreamy. That's not nice.
What's better?
Dreamy.
A handsome man?
Yeah, that's better.
I mean that in a masculine way, of course. In the SEC, a test of masculinity on Rocky Top. Georgia comes in. They take on Tennessee, and the Bulldogs best remember that Eric Age and company dropped half 100 on them between the hedges a year ago. They rallied furiously. It was an embarrassing loss, an embarrassing defeat for that Georgia defense. Wow. But in this series recently, the road team has been very, very successful because Mark Richt and the Dogs generally go to Rocky Top and put a hobnail boot in the backside of General Nealon's bunch there. Tennessee in their last 20 SEC home games, 11-9. that is mediocre. And the defense against the pass for the Volunteers, they played Cal and Florida, has been worse than mediocre. This is a major challenge. Can Matt Stafford and Georgia, we saw them go on the road, beat Alabama in a hostile environment in overtime. That's their specialty, winning on the road. Can they do it again?
That's an excellent point. Let me tell you, forget the X's and O's. I saw these guys with my own eyes. The spirit of Georgia, they're tough. Boy, they got a great running backs. Stafford's a winner. I like Georgia to win this football game.
Georgia's got to be looking at themselves and thinking, man, can we get that South Carolina game back?
Yeah.
But I think they have found a lot of success and confidence because of what happened in Tuscaloosa. Now you have a loss with Florida. There's second life for both these teams. But I think it's the running game of no Sean Marino and Thomas Brown against a Tennessee defense that surprisingly has been giving up a lot of yards on the ground. So Georgia's running game sets up Matthew Stafford. I like Georgia too. Georgia's an underdog in this game. It's a shocker.
Yeah, it's about a toss-up game. They know that the road team has had success in this series. I'm so tempted to go with that home Vol team, the double not so fast, just to make it interesting.
They're tough at home. They've been playing well.
I say they go to 12-9 in the last 21 SEC. Hey, Auburn's at home, and the bad news, of course, that Quentin Groves, their All-American defensive player, the guys that harassed Tebow, he won't be able to go. He's out. The good news is, of course, they get Lester back, and he's been academically ineligible. He should give a punch to that running game, and that's important because Vanderbilt is not that bad on defense. Beware, Vandy. You can't overlook them. This is a psychology game. Kirk talked about it, the letdown after that enormous upset on the Swamp. Keep an eye on Vandy. 3-1. Their goal is to get to a bowl game. They win this game. Look out, bowl's a certainty if they get out of there with the
That's
win.
right. If. Auburn, all I tell you, Auburn's heard Alabama, Saban all the time. And they come back with a big win against Florida. They will not let up. They've been waiting for a chance to start winning some ball games.
You're right.
I like Auburn in this one.
You're right. That whole state, it's all about
Alabama.
But now, for the last week, it's all been about, I told you so, Auburn. And next week, they've got Arkansas. They've got some huge games coming up. Ultimate sandwich game. I think Vanderbilt lulls them to sleep because they don't respect them. Ultimate letdown, and Auburn's already on the bus to the way to the stadium, so they're not watching this. Ultimate letdown from Auburn today, and Vandy surprises them in their own stadium after the big win against Florida. I think
delayed, not so fast.
Retroactive, not so
Absolutely.
fast. Well, you may have a point. It's not that big a weekend in Auburn because the Velcro Piggeries are not playing at the Supper Club. Delicious and the guys not in town. And every big game in Auburn, they're in town. So maybe an overlooked factor. By the way, in the SEC, quick reaction. Kentucky and Andre Woodson, are his Heisman chances over after the 3 turnover performance in South Carolina?
I don't think they're over. I think they have to rebound and beat some really good teams in the SEC, and he'll go right back up. But right now, he took a shot. If he beats Florida, I mean, if they win some of the games that they have
LSU
up,
next week,
and he plays well, he'll go right back up. So they're not over. But I don't think he's going to beat those teams, so I guess they are over.
That one performance on national television killed him.
Well, but if you're telling me if he threw for 350 yards against LSU next week,
he's not going to throw against.
I know he's not.
He won't even make it through the whole game against LSU.
I know.
These guys will stick it to him like pow.
Head ball coach. I say nothing, Mr. Corso. They were chirping about you down there in Columbia. They're going to be back in the top 10 if they just find ways. They just find ways.
It's getting hairy now.
Long way to go. You're starting to sweat. They're getting closer to contending. Red River shootout. 2 early losses. Who's going to bounce back? Oklahoma or Texas? Texas has got them last couple of years. Maybe more pressure on Oklahoma. And last week's Rutgers Conference title drive took a nasty hit. Is Cincinnati the Big East top team now? The Bearcat wired for sound next.
Big day, boys. Look like you're putting on a little weight. You get out here, be ready to go.
College Game Day, built by the Home Depot. Brought to you by Hummer, like nothing else. Energizer E² Lithium, keep going. And DirecTV. For the most sports in HD, you have to get DirecTV.
Oh, could I get an all from the crowd from the young Bayou Bengals here? Well, they've been clamoring for it. They've been demanding it down here. A conversation about the Big East Conference, which has had 4 different teams ranked in the top 10 already. That's impressive. But Louisville, not impressive. Beaten again last night on their home field by Utah. They stand at 3-3. Is this the most disappointing team in the country?
The Louisville defense is the most embarrassing performance in the whole country. The Louisville defense, not the Brahma's throwing for 500 yards a game and they're scoring, but the defense is terrible.
I'd have to put them right up there with Notre Dame potentially starting 0-8. I mean, that's bad.
But them aside, Irish aside.
Louisville.
Well, we expected more from Louisville than from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Great expectations at West Virginia. How are they going to bounce back? They're up in the Dome today.
Well, West Virginia had a wake-up call last week against South Florida. They explode today with number 2 quarterback Jarrett Brown, who's an excellent passer. Number 10, Steve Slayton, is due to break out in a game inside the turf. He should have a good game. Syracuse gives up 30 points a game. West Virginia, big. I mean, really big.
Meanwhile, USF had never been ranked. Now they're in the top 10 against the FAU team.
Remember when they pulled off the big upset last week? Jim Levitt said, ask me any question, Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is finally here. So Matt Grothe, tee off, enjoy yourself. The defense will be all over the field. Ben Moffitt, get the ball back to Grothe. Huge win for South Florida. No letdown today for the Bulls.
You're going to see the Bulls on parade at some key games coming up away from home. Rutgers, a week from Thursday there. They're at UConn. UConn's undefeated. Or home against Cincinnati, home against Louisville. I've been to Cincinnati. That's for you.
Sound like my grandpa.
Hey, they're ranked. We're talking about Cincinnati. They're old school. They're playing very good football. The Bearcats visit Rutgers and an angry Scarlet Knight team coming off the loss to Maryland. They had the game in hand. They fumbled a punt. It turned everything around. They lost on their home field, and Ray Rice took it very hard. The veteran running back angry, chip on his shoulder for a lot of reasons. Number one, Cincinnati held him to 54 yards, snapped his string of 100-yard games a year ago. Rutgers, injuries on defense, a major concern. Ron Girardi's a 4-year starter at safety. He's the leader of the defense. He can't go with the leg injury. Whenever you see a safety who leads the defense out, that is a concern, and Schiano certainly is concerned. Let's talk about the Bearcats, though. They bring a kind of an unsung team. You know, Ben Mock not healthy at the start of the season. The defense has been taking the ball away. Number 1 in the country with 21 takeaways. Mike Mickens, Nakamura. They have 13 interceptions as a team. The offense putting up 232 in 5 games. They throw it around on the spread. They rotate 3 running backs. And how about Brian Kelly, undefeated as Cincinnati head coach? Practices are short. They don't do much hitting, but they are very intense mentally.
Turn it up a notch. Everybody knows what's at stake. It's about how you prepare. Let's go, Mom.
I'm pretty tough on them in terms of their focus on Tuesday. Tuesday's an intense day for us.
Big day, boys. Big day. Intense Tuesday. When you get out here, be ready to go.
I like to set up, an intense teaching environment where we keep the pressure on our kids.
Mike, back box. Come up, get the rub. There you go, D-Lo. There you go, D-Lo.
I think you start with intensity, and then by Thursday and Friday, it should be flawless execution.
Direct, gun left, gun right.
I'd rather have it to be a mentally exhausting day for our kids because we know physically what we have. We want to make sure they're prepared mentally.
It's a totally different approach at practice than the Bearcats had under Mark D'Antonio. Very physical. He didn't hit a lot, but they are intense. And Kelly doing a terrific job selling the program as well. Ocho Cinco and the Bengals, their season's on life support. So the bandwagon is really growing in Cincinnati. Their fans are starting to come around. The media's paying attention.
Yeah, well, the Reds usually are out of the playoffs by the end of April. The Bengals season's over by the end of September. Bearcats basketball struggling without Bob Huggins. He owns the town for the most part, and he is a top shelf coach, and he's going to do a great job in creating a buzz with the Bearcats. But they have their hands full today, taking on a Rutgers team that is stinging because of the way they played last week. I think you're going to see UC's defense load up to take away Ray Rice, who has struggled the last 2 weeks. He hadn't gotten to 100 yards the last 2 weeks rushing. It's going to be, the game will be put into the hands of Mike Teal once again. He has stepped up time after time, throwing the football. He'll have to do it tonight again against this stingy UC defense. I think Rutgers, because they're at home and because they're coming off of a loss, wins a hard-fought game. This will be a brawl.
Boy, I like this Cincinnati football team, and they're confident. They're 5-0. The key thing is their defense has only allowed 10 points a game. And here's another key thing. They won 2 road games this year. Now, Rutgers is 3-1. They've beaten 3 cream puffs, which is worse than cupcakes. They got tested last week, and they failed a test. They fail again. Yes, sir. They failed a test against Maryland, the only good team they played, and they'll lose again. This time Cincinnati beats them.
It was a mental bobble, and they had the lead in that game. You give them no chance of bouncing back. I tell you what, Schiano is concerned about the defense. The long linebackers there, they're nicked up. He wishes this game was pushed back. It's not. You got to play it, and here come the Bearcats.
And here they go.
By the way, we want to salute the Big East Conference in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yep.
The Big East officials are using pink whistles.
Again,
Oh, that's neat.
That's very nice, isn't it? Very nice touch. And you've got there you go.
Hey, I got to pull
That's
it under
nice.
sweat. It's stuck to my forearm from the sweat.
A lot more coming up on College Game Day. You're going to want to see this story. The team that trained side by side with American soldiers who were on their way to war in Iraq experienced today one college football team will never forget.
It was really special to be able to see that you can play for something or be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And that's really, I think, what we learned that day.
We'll hear the story of Ron Prince's Wildcats, and we'll take you live to Baghdad, where these soldiers are feeling just maybe a little bit closer to home by following the purple as they get set to take on the Jayhawks today. That's coming up.
Extreme power of Energizer Lithium, the world's longest lasting AA battery and high-tech devices. Energizer, keep going.
That Alfredo really hit the spot.
He just said that about the meat sauce.
Different dish, different spot.
Olive Garden's never-ending pasta bowl with new sausage and peppers marinara. Pick any sauce and pasta combination, then another. Just $8.95. Have all you want.
This dog ain't going home until he gets his bone. Hey, they said that way be okay. So when he's home alone, he barking nothing.
The new Dell XPS M1330, designed for performance. Powered by Intel Centrino Duo. Dell, yours is here.
This garage floor looks beautiful. Epoxy shield, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a professional did it.
Oh, no. He's home.
Scott, Liz, you really don't have to stare at my garage floor every day. You can do it yourself. I did. It's easy.
Do it right the first time and create the ultimate garage floor with Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield, America's best-selling premium garage floor coating.
Hey, can you hit the button?
Last Wednesday,
How many people have you touched?
27 million viewers were touched. This Wednesday, the groundbreaking new hit is packing a punch. An all-new Pushing Daisies, Wednesday at 8, 7 Central, followed by an all-new Private Practice on ABC.
Hey there, college football fans. This is Brady Quinn. Whether I'm on the field, checking out the scene, or all business, I'm always in the game. So it's always important that I have my game face on. And that starts with Gillette Fusion. Get your game face on and win big from Gillette Fusion. Go to GilletteGameFace.com to find out how you could win a grand prize. FaceTime with me in New York City. So to get in the game, check out GilletteGameFace.com now.
Today's Gillette Game Face is brought to you by Gillette Fusion. Show us your game face, and you could win a 40-inch flat panel TV, a trip for 4 to New York City, and FaceTime with Brady Quinn. Visit GilletteGameFace.com to find out how.
Never any shortage of Gillette Game Faces down here in Baton Rouge. Lee Corso is my hero.
Today's Gillette Game Face is brought to you by Gillette Fusion. Show us your game face, and you could win a 40-inch flat panel TV, a trip for 4 to New York City, and FaceTime with Brady Quinn. Visit GilletteGameFace.com to find out how.
Never any shortage of Gillette Game Faces down here in Baton Rouge. Lee Corso is my hero.
Oh, yeah. And away.
Wow. Others aim slightly higher, but that's okay. You got someone who's a role model down here. Well, they've been clamoring for a conversation about the Big 12 and how the Buffaloes might respond after that landmark big home win over Oklahoma, and then they go down to Waco, Texas.
Yeah, honestly, I'd feel better if I were a Colorado fan if they were playing somebody bigger with a bigger name, because I think this is going to be a challenge. Cody Hawkins, what a great story. Playing for your dad leads them to a big victory. He's got to get Hugh Charles, now that he's healthy, more involved today. I think this is upset alert. I like Baylor to upset the Buffs in Waco.
Ooh, not so fast. Big 12 North lead at stake here.
Hey, Nebraska's only loss this year was to USC, and they scored 31 points. Their leader is Marlon Lucky, who can run the football. But this is what I like about Lucky. He goes to the outside, and all of a sudden, whoop, he throws a touchdown pass. A lot of trickery there. Now, Missouri is 4-0, and they're coming off an off week. So, obviously, they're going to be very, very ready to win this football game. But the problem they have, Kirk, is their defense allows 25 points a game. I think Nebraska, a 7-point underdog, outscores Missouri and upsets them. Upset Nebraska over Missouri.
That's crazy to say that. You almost had to say it twice to say that's a big upset, because it is. I think both defenses are struggling. I think this is the shootout of the day. I think Sam Keller will put up big points. I think the fact the game is being played in Missouri, I give Chase Daniel and all of his weapons around him, especially Jeremy Macklin, who's been a great story for them. I think Missouri outscores Nebraska in what will be one of those games. Who has the ball last? I like the Tigers at home.
Be a great game.
Outscores because both defenses are reeling. Here's a note for Nebraska. Purify, their excellent wide receiver, the top receiver. A personal tragedy this week. His girlfriend dying in a car accident in Los Angeles. It's not known if he's going to play, but that's certainly a factor on his mind. It's the 102nd Sunflower Showdown. Kansas visiting Kansas State in the purple, riding high after that big win in Texas. And Jordy Nelson, excellent on special teams, excellent as a returner. K-State's defense, though, will be tested. I know the competition hasn't been very good, but Mangino's offense, Reesing and company, throwing the ball all over the place. What's worth remembering here, though, is that the last time that Kansas scored a touchdown in the Bill Snyder Family Stadium was back in '99. They've done nothing but kick field goals in the 3 games since then. So look at the defensive ranks of those opponents for Kansas and ask yourself, how meaningful are those statistics? This is one of those games I think that's going to reveal a lot about both teams. Of course, Kansas State showed a lot of heart winning at Austin when few people gave them a chance. And this story will explain where Kansas State has found inspiration for this season. Because if they wanted to find that example of a bunch of young guys working together for higher purposes than just individual glory, individual goals, they found such an example less than a half hour away from their campus. A group of guys wearing a different kind of uniform and serving a much deeper purpose. And in just about 3 hours, Kansas State's players formed a bond that will last for a lifetime. Tom Rinaldi has this story.
They wear their gear. They run their drills. They work for victory. But this season at Kansas State, the notion of team and the meaning of mission is different. For the Wildcats, it began one frigid and dark morning in January with a 20-minute bus ride from campus, where another team was preparing for another kind of mission at Fort Riley, Kansas.
I just said to myself, I've got to be the craziest coach in the country. Here I have a place that trains leaders every single day, and we haven't taken advantage of it.
I think Coach Prince wanted us to see what hard work really is like, and to know that the kind of work that they do really is very meaningful, and for us to take the kind of attitude that they have about it and put it into our own work.
Fort Riley is the home of the 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Army, a unit also known as the Black Lions.
I was pretty excited. I've always wanted to have a civilian come and do what I do for a day, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Hey, listen up! You start from the guidon, you finish on the guidon, got it? Hey, Delta Company! Found out last night, we're going to South Baghdad. If you ain't ready now, you gotta get ready. 3, 2, 1, begin!
The idea was simple. Soldiers and players, side by side. In sub-zero temperatures, for 4 hours, they came together tires. Each man had to carry another on his back for half a mile.
A guy who stood about 5'5", maybe 160 pounds, 150 pounds, threw me on his shoulders and ran like it was nothing. The man's a warrior.
You couldn't pick out who was a football player. You couldn't pick out, who was a Black Lion. You just saw guys working together, and I thought that was the beautiful thing about it.
Because we're working as a team together and trying to accomplish the mission together, we have to trust each other. So if one of those guys would carry me and drop me, well, I'll get right back on top of him again.
K-State guys, we have been inspired by watching you this year. We just stood up this battalion last year, and we're all about developing leaders in the Army. These guys that you were out here competing with today, in a month will be in Baghdad walking patrols down those streets.
Those orders came true. Less than a month after working out with Kansas State players, the soldiers were deployed to Iraq. Before the football season even began, 3 Black Lions died.
I think it was very poignant for our players to see that in the early going there were several young men who they had worked out with who wouldn't be coming home. To really face-to-face with it and see the names and remember the faces.
It's almost as if a part of you is gone with them, because that experience that you shared, that you have together, that person is gone. And it does change you. It does make you think differently about a lot of things.
So, the notion of team and the meaning of mission are different. In a season that began with a day unforgettable, with a bond indelible.
It was a great honor to go out there and work out with those guys and go through some of the stuff that they have to go through. The only difference is when their season starts, it's live bullets flying. When our season starts, we're playing a game.
I know our wins when we have them are very exciting for those guys and comforting to them when they come back from their missions. And for us, we every one of the missions that they have that comes back successful, we're really pleased too.
Now, the temperature that day that they trained together was actually about 10 below zero before dawn. Ian Campbell, to honor the Black Lions, wearing one of their patches on his jersey for home and away games, have been given a special dispensation by that unit. The sobering news is that the 2 Black Lions you heard from in that piece have been injured in combat. The good news is that they are recovering well. Now, there is a significant satellite delay, but we want to go to Iraq now. The 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry Regiment, and Stephen Harker is a first lieutenant. Ask him how this bond between the Black Lions and the Wildcats has helped perhaps them feel a little bit closer to home in the midst of their daily danger. Stephen?
Well, Sean, I could say basically it's always nice to have something to look forward to when we do get home, and it's especially nice last week after the Texas win. Granted, it was a little delayed, but that was always an inviting thing to have at the battalion, have something uplifting to look forward to. It was especially personal to me being an alumni from K-State, and the fact that I work with a Texas fan, so that was a good week for me to rub it in.
All right, Stephen, thank you very much. We appreciate all that you're doing for our country over there. Stay safe. Get home safely. The crowd here in Baton Rouge behind you as well. And around the globe, lots of interested folks in what happens in the college football field, regardless of their higher mission. We'll be back. And it's known here as Death Valley inside Tiger Stadium, where the Bayou Bengals have won 16 in a row. Here's the weather forecast for tonight, saying thunderstorms, a chance 30%, which means it will definitely rain. If experience tells us anything, it'll be sticky and humid. Meanwhile, news out of Penn State, where the Lions take on Iowa today. Austin Scott, their starting tailback, apparently will not play in the ball game today. WJAC TV is reporting that his locker has been cleared out. Now, this does not involve an incident with criminal charges that have been filed. This is not that. It's an internal team matter, a violation that has Joe Paterno very upset. So Austin Scott apparently will not play today against Iowa. Beyond that, his status really hasn't been determined. Now, Iowa and Penn State are both 0-2 in the conference. They haven't met since 1904. It was that epic game that set back Big Ten football about 80 years. Iowa had 2 field goals. Penn State had 2 safeties. It was 6-4. They had to take 2 years off before they could meet again, and now they're back on the field.
Well, it may set them back again, boys, because these two teams come in struggling. Iowa's just young. They're inexperienced. They're beat up, and it's affecting this team. They lost, of course, to Indiana last week, and poor old Anthony Morelli, last 2 weeks, they just can't seem to do anything right. 4 turnovers again last week. I think this could be one of those ugly games, but Penn State will find a way to win at home.
Well, can Morelli rebound? He has trouble doing that. Mistakes stick with him. Look at the last 4 drives after an excellent start at Illinois. Final 4 drives, 3 picks in the red zone, a fumble on a 4th down play. And that's a meltdown. Darryl Clark that may make it a look today, the backup.
And they can't run the football effectively enough to take the pressure off of him. So life is not good right now for
And
Illini.
Scott's not playing.
Yeah, that's right.
Tailback.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Illini are favored over number 5 Wisconsin with a 14-game winning streak. Badgers have noticed that. They arrive with a chip on their shoulder pads. P.J. Hill, he was dinged a year ago against this team. 10 rushing touchdowns. Tyler Donovan may have to keep the big plays coming because Brett Bielema can't really trust his defense against a spread offense. Illini spread it around. Juice is dangerous. They got 24 plays of 20 or more yards. Bielema's concerned about Ben, the freshman, who took the kickoff back. Ron Zook is hug a neck. Hug a neck, you've doubled the win total.
This guy's
a couple
a player.
years ago. He is a player. I mean, Illinois, that's it. Lehman, you saw Jay Lehman, the linebacker, leads the Big Ten with 59 tackles. I mean, when you're used to winning 2 games a year and you got 4 already, I mean, that is sweet stuff in Illinois. We're going to find out if they can keep it going, the Zooker. This is sweet redemption for him and for A.D. Ron Gunther, who hired him when many in the country, including down here in SEC country, were snickering about that hire. And Zook did lose 15 of his first 16 conference games. He kept pounding the recruiting trail, had a class rated in the top 10, and that young talent is hungry to make an instant impact. They don't want to hear about being a year away. If they beat the Badgers as a favorite, they get Michigan at home, and the only opponent on the schedule remaining that's ranked is Ohio State. Dare we dream? But the Illini? Ron Zook's got a bunch of believers who practice enthusiastically, high tempo with a lot of energy.
All right, let's go, run through, let's go, move around, let's go. If you don't know where to go, start running, let's go.
We think we get more out of the players, once again, moving fast. It's, they don't have time to think about the other things that are going on. We want them to be involved in football.
Here we go, offside guys, 2, here we go. Communicate back here now, communicate. Attack.
And I think when you come to practice prepared, you come to practice excited, that's the fun time. You're outside, you're with the players, you're doing what you love to do.
Good kick, good job. All right, here we go. Ball, man, let's go. Find the ball. Get up. There you go, good.
When the people leave the stadium, we want them saying, man, those guys are having fun. They're flying around. They're playing the game the way it's meant to be played.
Let's go. Come on now, let's go, move. Here we go.
Now, it's an enormous game. If Ron Zook can get this win, they're going to be bowl bound. Even if they don't get the win, they got a great chance. And the recruits keep going to Champaign. It's less than an hour to kick. The game follows us on ESPN. Now, the defense that Illinois offense will face is really not special. They've only forced 4 turnovers. They've given up a whole lot of passing yards in the spread. Can Illinois beat Wisconsin? They're expected to beat them by the experts. And that's
absolutely, Illinois can beat Wisconsin. I think that the athletic ability that you just touched on from Juice Williams, Mendenhall is one of the best backs that nobody's heard of around the country. He'll give, I think, Wisconsin fits, but Wisconsin doesn't have the speed defensively, so when you do spread them out, the quarterback's athletic ability becomes a factor. I like Wisconsin to go to Champaign and win because of one thing. I think they're tired this week of hearing about Illinois and Ron Zook and hearing about how they're just winning ugly. They don't deserve the ranking. So the intangibles in my mind are the equalizer, and Wisconsin is an underdog, ranked 5th in the country against a team that's not ranked. My friend, somebody knows something that I don't know, and you're going to go with the somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew it.
I knew it was coming all week.
You know why? Because Wisconsin is 5-0, but the only time they left Badgerland, they struggled to beat UNLV 20-13. Now, let me repeat what my friend just said. Wisconsin's number 5 in the nation. Illinois is number 27. And Illinois is a field goal favorite. Somebody knows something I don't know. This is my favorite. I'm going with those somebodies. Illinois by a field goal.
To snap the nation's longest winning streak. Did you know he was going to say that?
I know. Yes,
I said on Monday to Felica that he was going to say that. I knew he'd say that.
I've been waiting all year for that. Somebody knows something I don't know.
That might be the ultimate somebody knows
I'm
something
going with,
game.
I got Badgers.
I got Illinois.
You get the Badgers.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Illinois was your preseason surprise team, though? You still think they're going to a bowl
I
game?
like their athletic ability.
Haven't been to a bowl since they lost 2.
Oh,
that was after a wake. LSU beat them in the Sugar Bowl.
Wake them up. The band showed up.
Wake them up now. Wake them up. We're going to tell you about a guy from Shadron. That's right, Shadron State. He's about to do something that these college football legends never did. Meet the back who's soon going to be seeing the likes of Barry, Archie, Bo, and Herschel in his rear view mirror.
He's a legend and really doesn't know it, you know, and that's the way he wants it, though.
Needs 121 yards, and he's never held below that. North Platte, Nebraska native is going to become the all-time rusher in all divisions. His dad is a high school coach. He had to scramble to get down to Silver City, New Mexico today to see history made after coaching in a game last night. His dad went to Shadron State along with his uncle, and Danny was not really recruited by Nebraska despite being a very fast guy in North Platte High School. He's a math major, 3.5 GPA, the better to keep track of all those yards. He is a very solid citizen. He's about to be a record holder. And Shelley Smith, to introduce you to him, took him to America's Outback.
Shadron, Nebraska is a town of 5,200 sandhills of western Nebraska, a one-stoplight town that used to be known for fur trading. 100 miles from a commercial airport, it's a town a person has to want to find.
You know, it's small. It's not a big place.
Put it away, put it away. Nebraska native Danny Woodhead found Shadron and Division II Shadron State 3 years ago after failing to get a scholarship offer from a single Division I school, including the University of Nebraska. Speculation was that at 5'8", he was too small.
That's a question that I kind of always ask myself, is because there have been a lot of 5'8" running backs. There have been some 5'6" running backs. So I don't know what the reason is, but I mean the reason was obviously to get me at Shadron State.
A lot of guys are here because Nebraska didn't come in, UNO didn't come in. You know, a lot of our state schools were overlooked. You know, and that's what kind of our program has been built off of.
And all Woodhead has done is dazzle a division. Last season winning the Harlan Hill Trophy, the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy for Division II players.
10-5 touchdown, Danny Woodhead.
He's not an imposing figure at all. He makes up for a lot of things. It has nothing to do with his height. You know, I would take him if he's 4 foot tall. You know, he's putting up the numbers, what he's doing right now.
Numbers that likely will make him college football's all-time leading rusher in any division.
Don't you want to say to those schools that didn't recruit you, told you?
You know, maybe when I was in high school I would have said that. But honestly, I don't have any hard feelings.
He could call any coach in America and say, hey, here's what I did. You know, this is what I broke and this is what I've done. But you're not that type of kid.
For now, he's fueled by the Eagles' record of 5-0 and the idea of helping Shadron become known for something other than the fur trading museum.
The nation probably thinks of it still as a small little town, small school, and, you know, a kid that, you know, might be racking up yards in a smaller division. But we're getting Shadron State noticed, and if it has to be that way, you know, that's pretty cool.
Again, only needs $121 today. With a bunch more games, he should really extend that record. But what about the next level for Woodhead? Well, he's been timed in the 40 at 4.41, and that's not some inflated time from a smaller school. The Atlanta Falcons traveled out there all the way to Shadron, timed him in 4.41. Now, Shadron is the alma mater of Don Beebe, the former NFL great, also a very fast guy. The Combine legend has it that he went and ran the second fastest Combine time after Deion Sanders, of course, along with Desmond. Won the Super Bowl with the Packers, played in 5 Super Bowls, and chased down Leon Lett. And that famous play right there. Todd McShay, our scout, joins us from the studio. He's always keeping an eye on everybody, even the smaller school guys. And Todd, what do you think? Break down Woodhead's game and his chances contributing in some capacity in the NFL next year.
Oh, Chris, college football fans are just getting to know Danny Woodhead, but NFL scouts have known him for a while, and they understand his talents. Obviously, he has some obstacles to overcome. He's undersized, as you mentioned. He comes from that Division II level, and he's had some fumbling problems, but the positives really outweigh the negatives. The more I watch on film, the more I really compare Woodhead to Maurice Jones-Drew, the former UCLA star and now the current Jacksonville Jaguars versatile back. And I mention versatility because that's what he brings. Catches the ball extremely well out of the backfield. He can return kicks and punts, and he's a tough runner for his size. It's a little deceptive. Just because he's short doesn't mean he doesn't bring the wood sometimes as an inside runner. He's a physical back. Only 4 Division II backs or players were drafted a year ago. I think he could be one of them this year in the late rounds. He gives an excellent opportunity to make plays on special teams and on offense. That's why I think he'll stick in the NFL for a while.
All right, Todd, thanks. Good stuff as always. You know, it wasn't just Frank Solich, who was an undersized fullback himself, who said no thank you to Woodhead when he was coming out of high school. Nobody really recruited this guy despite that kind of speed, and he's not really with a chip on his shoulder, but he's just been confused why nobody gave him a chance, making a big name for himself, of course, in Division II. About 40 minutes away from kickoff on ESPN, you'll see the Badgers ranked number 5 in Champaign. Bielema still just 1 loss in his career as a head coach, and Butch Davis, the head coach at North Carolina, against his former team, the Miami Hurricanes. That game can be seen over on ESPN2 just about 40 minutes from now.
Eludes pressure and throws an interception.
Oh, it's today, finally the day Notre Dame fans have waited for. We'll size up Notre Dame's chances of winning against UCLA. We're going to hear from Charlie Weiss. And LC, is he going to have the guts to put on a gator head down here in Baton Rouge? Will Herbstreit pull the trigger with another road dog? We'll find out. Here in Baton Rouge, they'll cook anything on a grill. Couchon de lait is what they call roast pig. But this week, it's roast gator. That's real. It tastes a little like chicken. We had a little gator for lunch yesterday, Kirk. Not a lean. You had some, so you took a bite. Nothing against
I didn't know it was.
It tastes pretty good. Hey, Notre Dame's got 11 Californians on the roster. They're winless as they've been at UCLA. The first game in Pasadena since the 25 Rose Bowl when the 4 horsemen were crowned. Not enough horses for Notre Dame so far, but Evan Sharpley did spark them. When Jimmy Clausen got knocked out last week, will he play, though? That's the question. Last year, the Bruins beat up Brady Quinn on defense. They haven't really got the pass rush going so far this year. They expect a breakout game today. What do the Fighting Irish, Mean Green, Ragin' Cajuns, Thundering Herd have in common? They sound fierce, aggressive. They are winless. Total of 9. Notre Dame, the only BCS-aligned team in that club. North Texas and Louisiana Lafayette nearby tonight. 2 winless teams. Something's got to give down the road. Meanwhile, the Irish are just 1 loss away from matching the longest skid in school history, 8. All 7 of those losses by at least 2 touchdowns. And none of the teams that have beaten them this year are in the top 20. 3 of them already have 2 losses. The Irish have not yet hit the 20-point mark on offense, and Evan Sharpley's rally made a lot of people in the Notre Dame nation, the Subway alums, believe that he should get a chance, even though Clausen is now healthy. Charlie Weiss not quick with the hook and not about to give up on Clausen.
These 2 guys have kind of fallen into fairly similar patterns as of their style of play. You know, they're not the exact same player, but they're fairly similar in their style of play. So I think, you know, one's got to be 1 and one's got to be 2.
If Jimmy is healthy enough, he's the starter.
That's what he'd be. If he's healthy enough, he'll start.
And supposedly he is healthy enough. 17% of the nation will get this game. Does Notre Dame have a 17% chance of finally getting the win? Desmond joined us. We'll go to this side first. What do you think? Notre Dame win?
No, Notre Dame doesn't win this game. Carl Durrell's seat gets a little hot if he loses this game, so I got the Bruins big.
You know, the Irish have a shot at UCLA for one major reason. UCLA is the most inconsistent football team in the nation. They won 3 Pac-10 games and got beat by Utah 44-6. But I never thought I'd see the day when Notre Dame is crowing about winning the second half against Purdue 19-10. Now, they'll win another half today, but they won't win another game. But they'll be closer than the experts think. I think Notre Dame loses UCLA closer than the Expedition.
I think UCLA is a better team than you're giving them credit. The reason I say that is I know they didn't show up in Salt Lake City, but outside of that, I think this UCLA team is for real. I think they've got a great shot to run the table and maybe get all the way to the end with one loss when they take on USC. I think they have that kind of talent. I think Notre Dame, I understand they've had a great week of practice. Maybe they keep it close, but the athletic ability of the Bruins will prevail. Too much speed for Notre Dame to deal with the Bruins right now.
Next up for the Irish, BC and USC at home. Arizona State down the road. Arizona State's got some paying back to do out there. They got to pay back Cal and Oregon and UCLA, but they better be on upset alert in the Palouse today.
Well, I'm interested to see Arizona State today because I think they're taking on a Washington State team that against their 3 toughest opponents have allowed 46 points, which means Rudy Carpenter has a big day, and also the running of Ryan Terrain. Sun Devils big over Washington State.
Yeah, I say upset alert. Take care of business. Take care of business. Oh, poor Stanford. TC Ostrander suffered from a seizure Sunday. This is Tavita Pritchard. We had to look very hard to find a couple of plays that he's been involved in. No inexperience against USC. Now, the Trojans are banged up. Chauncey Washington's got to carry some of the load here. Gable is out for the year. And Stephon Johnson, the guy who rumbled through the Huskers, he's out with a foot bruise. So they got him and they got Joe McKnight. And what in the world is Jim Harbaugh doing stirring up USC? A little while ago he said there's no question in my mind USC is the best team in the country, maybe the best team in the history of college football. Hello, that was preseason, and you know, he just kind of laughed it off, Pete Carroll, but it may not help, just in case USC gets a big lead in this game.
No.
What do you think?
I like LSU. I like LSU better than USC.
Do you? Really?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. They're the best team. Yes, sir.
They're 2 points ahead in the AP poll. They're the best team in the country over USC, right?
Well, because of their defense. I mean, we saw them play against Virginia Tech a couple weeks ago when we came here, and they came out and they just smashed Virginia Tech in the mouth. But when we saw USC play against Nebraska late in the second quarter, Nebraska was up 10-7. I think the offenses are very comparable. I think the running back situation, hey, they can't keep a guy either healthy or enrolled out there at Southern Cal, and they have Hester and Williams here. But the defense, they play with such a great attitude and such great intensity, you have to give the nod to the Tigers.
Well, I think most people probably at this point think that LSU's been a little bit more consistent, even though they had a tough game last week against Tulane in the first half. I give the nod to USC, and the reason I say that is I think not only is their defense on par despite their injuries with LSU, I think their offense hasn't come close to reaching the potential of where they eventually will be. And I think that's the difference, is the offensive potential and what they still will show in the coming weeks before they get ready for Oregon, Cal, and Arizona State. So I'd give a slight edge right now to SC.
And we're fortunate to have seen both of these teams live and in color. Let's go with the defense. LSU is the #1 football team in the nation when it comes to defense. 32 points in 5 games. Nebraska got 31 against USC. Now, USC has the advantage offensively. They average 49 points a game, and they got a lot of skilled athletes. Special teams even. But this is where LSU beats them. LSU has beaten 3 teams that are winning. USC has beaten only 1 football team with a winning record. Neutral site. LSU's defense wins the game.
All right, well, USC was the first team in the AP poll in 5 years to win and then drop behind LSU. And the 2 polls involved in the BCS, though, the coaches and the Harris. USC is #1. Most of the computers, by the way, have LSU ahead of USC, and those will be voting online. Also, America's
The beautiful thing is, hopefully, they both advance to the championship, and we can settle it on the field.
That's not a neutral site.
No, it's not a
New Orleans, Louisiana.
That is not a neutral site.
Oklahoma found that out a few years ago. BCS championship game. It is a neutral site in Dallas, Texas, the Red River rivalry. Texas State Fair going on around it. Drinking a lot of beverages and eating a corny dog. We're going to find out which team's going to bounce back, Texas or Oklahoma. And it's a deja vu all over again. You're at Baton Rouge, you can eat. Now, you can eat before a football game. They tell us that's gator gumbo. They're using gator meat and all kind of concoctions here. And there's plenty to wash down the food. They tailgate like no place else. Of course, also a great scene in Dallas where OU meets Texas. This is a great tradition. It's the 25th annual Run to Dallas event. You got Navy ROTC, midshipmen from Oklahoma and Texas, each with a game ball. Mac Brown gave the Texas guys a pep talk on Thursday. Takes them about 27 hours. The proceeds benefit the Lance Armstrong Live Strong Foundation, and they will rendezvous very soon in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, and walk in together. Now, both teams walk in wounded together after losses. Of course, Texas stunned at home by Kansas State, and their former quarterback, Vince Young, who ended the losing streak against Oklahoma a couple years ago, was not pleased with what he witnessed on the sidelines. He said the team has to step up, take ownership, and show some leadership, some urgency, some hunger down there. They've lost their last 3 conference games going back to last year. But there may be even more pressure on Oklahoma coming into this game because they've lost the last 2 to Texas. And Bob Stoops once called big game Bob because he won those big games. You go back to December '03 and you define big games as Texas Conference Championship game and BCS Bowls. He is 3-6 since that point. Both teams have a lot to play for. The goals are still ahead of him for the team that wins. Colt McCoy, though, knocked around in that loss, 4 interceptions, still has a lot to prove. He has really struggled ever since that Kansas State loss a year ago, and there are concerns. He says, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. No concussion symptoms. But is he a little gun shy? Because you know that Oklahoma defense, which is hard knocking, they want to redeem themselves. They were dominated by Colorado last week. You know they're going to come after him.
Hey,
I mean,
and
they will come
Texas
after
is
him.
getting Oklahoma at the worst possible time after they lose a game. Boy, they're mad, and their offense is explosive, led by a freshman quarterback named Sam Bradford. Now, let me tell you something about Bradford. I think he's the best young freshman quarterback in the nation. He looks off the linebacker here, and then nice pass into the end zone. And here is one of my favorites, Alan Patrick, number 34. Watch this stretch play in the National Football League, just like that. I tell you what, Oklahoma is one of the best football teams in the nation. Now, Colorado woke up the sleeping giant. Oklahoma is not only mad, they got revenge. And I'll tell you what, this is a big win for Oklahoma. They clobbered Texas today. Sorry.
Here it comes again.
But I get excited.
When you get fired, the spit just starts flying. Yeah, he hit me right here in the forearm. Yeah, he's right. Oklahoma's balance offensively is the thing that I think allows them to be one of the most dominating offenses in the entire country. That's why what happened to them last week against Colorado was so confusing to a lot of people once they had the big lead. But I think it starts with their offensive line. Kevin Wilson, the offensive coordinator, does a great job with these guys because not only are they physical, but here they show the finesse aspect of it and giving Sam Bradford plenty of time. They've only allowed 3 sacks on the entire year. This is the remarkable part of Bradford that Lee just talked about, is the touch and the accuracy for a redshirt freshman. That's pretty good coverage by that Miami corner. The ball's put right over the shoulder to Kelly for a touchdown. Now, this offense average going into the Colorado game, 62 points a game, 562 yards of offense per game. And you know what happened in their last 5 possessions last week against Colorado? They had an interception, a sack on 3rd down, interception, a fumble, and then a drop pass. That's their last 5 possessions. Lee is right. They are anxious to get back out onto the field, and they win very impressively today against the Longhorns.
Wow. Big, huh?
Yep. Yeah,
ABC Regional at 3:30. No, I just think we are so overdue for a close game. You realize the last game decided by single digits in this rivalry was 10 years ago. There have been some close games, but it didn't end up close at the end.
Is it on
and it's not going to be close.
Is it on ABC?
ABC.
Yeah, it's close until the end.
Yeah.
Then big.
There you go.
Yeah, there's another game in the Big 12, but it's going to be our bonus pick at the end of the show. Interested to hear what you guys have to say about Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy, the Cowboy Nation behind him, the A&M team behind Dennis Franchione. Went to the press conference. He had a tear in his eye, so an emotional game.
Yeah. You think it's fun? We're going to finally get to the LSU Florida game. When we come back. You think it's a lot of fun to have an opportunity to square off against Glenn Dorsey and this LSU defense? We'll tell you if the Gators are able to move the ball against maybe the best defense in the country.
Plus, no need to wait till later to find out who's going to win the biggest games of the day. Picks, and more are coming up later on the best show in college football.
Great build up here in Baton Rouge. There's Lee's favorite band down there on the bottom, but it is just wall-to-wall purple and gold. They're saying maybe a couple 100,000 people have come into this city for this game. The place only seats about 90,000. They'll probably break a record tonight, but double the number of people that can fit in the stadium have come here for this game. And The reasons are obvious. LSU jumping in #1, thinking national title, and of course Florida did beat him in the swamp here a year ago. One piece of news that's important for Florida fans: Tony Joyner, although he's been stripped of his captaincy by Urban Meyer, has been cleared to play, and that's key. He's a big part of that secondary for the Gators. All charges dropped, and they hope he can go after some footballs the way he was going after his girlfriend's car in the impound lot. So Joyner is back. Now Florida hopes they'll bounce back after the loss to Auburn last week, just like they did last year. The difference is that was a veteran team that kind of came apart in the locker room after the game, then regrouped and won the national title. This team, 73% of it, freshmen or sophomores. Can they do it again? Gators think they can. Here's Wendy Nix.
The kick is good! Good! See you later, alligator! Tigers win!
The soul of a man is revealed when he's punched in the face. Those were the words of head coach Urban Meyer to his young Florida team in the locker room following its loss to Auburn last Saturday.
I think Coach Meyer handles losses, extremely well. He let our team know that this loss, although, hard and difficult and tough to deal with, it's going to be, good for us in the long run.
Good for the Gators because last year they were able to turn a loss into an opportunity. Following last October's defeat at Auburn, it was a heated confrontation between players in a locker room rich in senior leadership that led the 2006 Gators to forge a new identity.
It was a group of guys that, for a lot of them, it was their last chance.
I don't want to say it was violent, but it was great. I mean, it was everybody was speaking their piece.
When asked by an assistant if coaches should intervene, Meyer said no.
I think it's a little bit like a family. I mean, instead of suppressing it, at some point it's going to come out. You have to release.
Brothers fight, and you're still your brother. You're still going to defend him. I think that helped us pull together that much more.
Florida pulled together to win a national championship. Now, for the second straight season, an unbeaten Gator team suffered its first setback of the year to Auburn.
Everybody wants to compare it to last year. There's no comparison. It's a completely different team, completely different year.
Still, his players have not forgotten what they learned last season.
It's not over because, you have one setback, and it's not over this season because you have one setback, and it's not over in life. When you have one setback with your family, you got to keep going and keep fighting.
Yeah, it's one thing to bounce back. It's another thing to bounce back when you have to come here in LSU and snap their 16-game home winning streak. And I think folks around the Gator Nation are hoping they're going to see maybe a little bit less of Tim Tebow. They love him to death. But 22 carries per game in the SEC games, that's a lot of carries, Esmond. That's a lot of pounding from the quarterback, and he's going to take on an LSU defense that is #1 against the rush, #1 in total defense. They're allowed the fewest touchdown passes, the fewest completions. Quarterbacks against them have the worst passing percentage. I mean, every category on my big grid here, LSU's defense is unbelievable. How's Tebow and company going to cope with that?
Because of the way he manages the game. And to me, Dan Mullen does a great job of helping Tim Tebow manage the game. Let's take what they did last year. They had a quarterback who was a drop-back quarterback. And what did they do? Win a national championship with them. Now, Dan Mullen and Urban Meyer, they're great at working with their quarterbacks. Tim Tebow is a raw talent. He's not the best quarterback, but he's a heck of a football player. What they're going to do is make sure his strengths come out, but hide his weaknesses. They're great at doing that. Now, playing against Bo Pelini in that defense league, this one becomes a chess match. And it's like Kasparov versus Deep Blue, or like our homies right here, Chris and Kirk in that promo.
Good stuff. I'm telling you, you're killing us. Right over my head. How about you? All right, now let me take a look at this Florida offense. Good news is they got a great quarterback in Tim Tebow. The bad news, Tim Tebow cannot win games against the SEC defenses by himself. He needs some help. Florida, give the guy some help. Now, inside the red zone, Tebow loves to throw the ball to 6'4", 220 Cornelius Ingram, and he throws a touchdown here against Auburn. Now, here is my favorite. Percy Harvin. This guy's a great football player. 24 catches for 360 yards in the last 3 games. Now, put this one down and mark it down somewhere. Florida needs to get the ball to Percy Harvin. Why? Listen to this. 52 touches this year, 12 yards per touch. And that's worth a yo. And they got a guy like this, Brandon James, who can fly. Give him the ball. As good as Tim Tebow is, listen to this. If he runs the ball 25 times in this ball game, he won't make it to the fourth quarter. Because I tell you what, LSU will whack him like he's never been hit before. And ain't no way. You got to give this guy some help if they're going to win the game tonight.
I agree with you. That's why I think Florida's offensive game plan tonight will be a lot like what they used in the national championship against Ohio State, where they didn't run the ball all that effectively, but they spread out the defense and they threw the ball horizontally. You're looking at an LSU defense that I think maybe one of the best we've ever seen in the SEC. Chevis Jackson and the secondary can play great man coverage. You combine the man coverage from the Tiger defense with the creativity from Bo Pelini, it makes it next to impossible to hold on to the ball. If you're a quarterback, here comes the blitz. By the time the line figures it out, you don't have enough time to get away from the pressure on the secondary, and all of a sudden you're sitting there spinning, and you're a quarterback and you're on your back. You're either ear hold or you're throwing it to get rid of it. Something to watch is a true freshman at right guard for the Florida Gators in this game. By the way, he's going up against maybe the best defensive player in college football, in Glenn Dorsey. Poor old 56. They're going to try to take pressure away from him for the Gators. His name's Marquise Pouncey. We'll be probably seeing a lot of him.
Ooh, it's bad news if you hear his name called, isn't it, though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The right guard for Florida. Yeah. Very, very important. So we'll see what happens.
Well, they got a lot of monsters up front in that defensive line for LSU. Both teams are so complex. Both teams do a lot. Gary Kasparov reference on game. I didn't think I'd hear that. Right now, when LSU has the football, they won't have early Doucette, that persistent groin problem. Here's a future NFL first rounder that's just out of the mix, but they still do run the ball very well. They've got weapons on the ground. They've used two quarterbacks. You said earlier, Parallel's going to play for sure.
Excellent point, because LSU's offense, they got a massive, beautiful offensive line that features strong running backs, two quarterbacks that can run and throw, and also some big plays from the wideouts. Is a surprise. Now, first of all, you got this guy, 32, Charles Scott, who's a fourth-string tailback, averages 6 yards per carry. Listen to this. In 2005, he was Mr. Football, and Louisiana can't get in the game. And Matt Flynn, his favorite receiver is Brandon LaFleur. Now, let me tell you something about Flynn. He's a great guy for moving the game and everything else. They won the national title with a guy named Matt Mock, just like this guy. All right? Now, tonight, I think you'll watch them run the ball, then go over the top for touchdowns. Florida's defense is not tested against a good football team. I like the LSU boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. I think Florida's defense, the masterminds behind the defense, do a great job. Greg Madison and Charlie Strong. And I think the Gators defense, while they're untested, you are going to love the athletic ability and speed of the Gators. Now, Brandon Spike's #1 tackler on the Gator defense. Look how the Gators can swarm. They still have speed. I know they're young, but they're going to play with a lot of effort tonight after what happened last week against Auburn. And then 91, Derek Harvey has to be huge off the edge and getting pressure on Matt Flynn. And also beware that when Ryan Perlew comes in, everybody thinks, boy, when Perlew comes in, it's a nice run balance with the attack that they have. Be careful, because he throws the football maybe as well, if not better, than Matt Flynn. So, Chris, when Perlew checks in, Virginia Tech learned the hard way. Fake the option, drop back, safeties come up, and he throws it right over the back of the secondary.
That's what Florida did to LSU a year ago. Remember Tim Tebow, the jump pass to the end zone? They weren't expecting the pass at that point. Well, here's the America's Vote verdict. People voting on ESPN.com, and LSU as the favorite in this game. The favorite online, 71% think the Bayou Bengals will win their 17th straight home game. 29% like the Gators, and 100% of the people here will go. Desmond, what about you? Who gets it tonight?
I agree with the people, like Don King. Only in America. I agree with America's vote. I go with the Tigers tonight.
Gary Kasparov and Don King. You're going with them.
Pep rally here. It's an easy win. LSU.
A pep rally. Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. We're minutes away from pulling the trigger.
Let me tell you something, man. The time has finally come. The moment the entire nation, I didn't write this, has been waiting for. I'm ready to make my fashion statement. Will I become a Gator or a Tiger? Headgear time is next. Don't touch that dial.
College Saturday's selections are brought to you by Pontiac. Watch this season's best Pontiac game-changing performances at ESPN.com. Keyword Pontiac.
minutes away from kickoff under the pines at Keenan Stadium in Chapel Hill. Kyle Wright, after the big game against A&M, Canes only put 24 on the board against Duke. Expect kind of a ugly, low-scoring defensive game on ESPN2. On ESPN, can the young Illini keep it going? They knocked off the Nittany Lions, and here come the 5th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers. Bruce Williams, all those weapons to work with, and great enthusiasm for this game in Champaign as the Illini try to go for another win over Wisconsin. And the Badgers, underdogs, try to do something about that chip on their shoulder. To Aaron Andrews for a report from Champaign. EA?
It's over at Assembly Hall where the Illinois basketball team plays in that rowdy Orange Crush student section. Cheer on the basketball players, but now the excitement has moved over across the street at Memorial Stadium. These Illini football fans now believe. Now last week against Penn State, the players actually told us it got so loud over here at Memorial Stadium, they couldn't hear the calls, they couldn't hear the plays. But like I said, these fans excited. They promised it's going to be louder today. 11 o'clock start here in Champaign. Chris, I know you love body paint. These fans started painting early today, Fowler.
They got a head start because most of those folks never slept.
No.
11 o'clock kickoff wouldn't go over too well here. Time for our Pontiac game-changing performance. I've noticed a pattern. Man in the middle goes with whoever is quarterbacking against Notre Dame's defense. So that means this week. I'm on to you.
How'd you?
I'm on to you.
That's exactly what I just said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
UCLA's quarterback, Ben Olsen. Why? Because he's playing against Notre Dame. Well, he threw for 220 yards last week against Oregon State. He led UCLA to 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. UCLA wins this game, Kirk, but I think it's closer than the experts think.
Okay, I'm going to go with my Pontiac game changer is going to be Sam Bradford, the quarterback from Oklahoma. I think he'll rebound from a dismal performance last week in Boulder. Put up some huge numbers today against the Texas secondary. Sam Bradford's the player of the day today.
You better hope so. Hope you can get on the board in this competition. Haven't won yet. I'm going to stay in the Big 12. We go to Jordy Nelson of the Purple Cats, doing it for the guys over in Baghdad against the Jayhawks. He had a huge game against Texas. He's a great receiver, dangerous returner as well. Not always the longest catches, but he's productive, and he's very, very tough to stop. He's my Pontiac game-changing performer. Watch all the games today, then watch college football final tonight to see which 4 plays Lee Kirk and I have nominated as potential Pontiac game changers of the week. You can vote on ESPN.com. The winner is announced every Thursday, and the winning school gets a $5,000 general scholarship contribution. You've already gone online today and helped us select our bonus pick. These guys will now pick the winner of Oklahoma State and A&M. That's one of your intriguing games because of the coaching situation. Coach Fran has his team behind him. It was an emotional week at A&M. You know what's going on in Oklahoma State the last couple weeks.
Well, A&M's coach is on a hot seat, and Oklahoma State's coach is still screaming. I'm going with the hot coach. Hot seat coach. A&M wins this one.
I'm going with America's coach. The only reason I'm even picking Oklahoma State is because of what my man did 2 weeks ago and stood up for his team and one of his players. I like Oklahoma State today because of Mike Gundy.
Okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see.
All right, we'll see. Tonight on ESPN, 6 o'clock, Virginia Tech. We saw them destroy Clemson last year, but the Tigers have won 10 in a row. When a team beats them bad, they come back the next year, and they beat them bad. They're a very good payback team, and they've awakened.
Not this year. Virginia Tech plays defense and special teams, and from what I remember on page 14 in the coach's manual, that wins games. I'm going with Virginia Tech.
Referring to the AARP coach's manual. I'm going to go with Clemson at home. You just can't figure this team out. They're schizophrenic, but I am going to go with him to be able to take care of a young freshman quarterback in Tyrod Taylor.
Minutes away, the kickoff in Manhattan, Kansas, where the Jayhawks have not scored a touchdown in their last 3 visits. Here comes the high-powered offense. We'll find out today about Kansas, one of those mystery teams. What about it?
Kansas beat 4 cream puffs, which are worse than cupcakes. Kansas State beat Texas. I'm going with Kansas State.
I think Kansas State, maybe a little bit of a letdown. I know they're at home, but I think Kansas might show the country today that they're for real. We'll see. I know the jury's still out, but I think Kansas can win this game, and I think the quarterback play will be essential there.
All right. You guys think the Bearcats of Cincinnati will show the country that they're for real? They come in with a ranking. They take on a Rutgers team that's mad at itself for the loss and nicked up on defense. 8 o'clock on ESPN2 tonight. It's a hostile and rowdy place. The Bearcats know it from 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Cincinnati's won 2 road games this year, and I tell you, Rutgers has had 1 test and failed it. I'm going with Cincinnati this year.
I'm going with one of your sayings, urgency and redemption. I think Rutgers at home after a loss, they cannot afford to lose another one. I think UC's a legitimate team, but I think Rutgers right now, coming off that loss, wins this game. They'll be emotional.
That was your preseason Big East pick, so you better hope they
they need a win there.
Well, Tennessee's defense needs to bow up and show some heart. They've struggled against the pass. Here comes Georgia. The visiting team typically wins in this game. Richt and company have gone in there 3 straight times.
I saw Georgia's heart from the sideline against Alabama. That heart beats Tennessee at Tennessee.
I think Georgia right now, what they did in Tuscaloosa, the game you're referring to, and then because Florida lost, I think there's a second life here for both teams, actually. I think Georgia's running game will be the key today. I like the Dogs.
Missouri's been impressive. Now we get serious. They got Oklahoma next week, but they got Nebraska today at home and a chance for a landmark win. It's a 9:15 Eastern time, 8:15 local kickoff on ESPN.
Missouri's undefeated, ranked. I'm telling you, they got a question on defense. I like Nebraska to outscore Missouri and Columbia.
I think both defenses have questions. I think Chase Daniel at home with a balanced attack wins this game for Missouri. This is a huge swing game in the Big 12 North. I like Missouri.
Yeah, it's a huge swing game in the Big 12 South. Oklahoma and Texas. It's an ABC regional game at 3:30. A little bit more than half the country will see that game. Who comes off the canvas and gets their season back on track?
The sleeping giant. Oklahoma's one of the best football teams in the nation. They went last week, but they're up this week. They beat Texas big.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page here. I think Oklahoma, they let off the accelerator last week. They were up 24-7, and all of a sudden they went to sleep. And I think they're very excited. You know how Bob Stoops is at practice this week to get back out on the field. I think they're the better team, especially defensively. I think they get it done. I like Oklahoma.
4 minutes from kickoff in Champaign, Wisconsin. Number 5 in the country. Wisconsin, 14-game winning streak. Wisconsin, underdog in the game.
My favorite. Wisconsin's number 5 in the nation. Illinois is number 27. Illinois is a 3-point favorite. Somebody knows something. I don't know. I'm going with the somebody's Illinois by a field goal.
I think Wisconsin's tired of hearing about Ron Zook and Illinois and how they're winning ugly. And I think for that very reason, Wisconsin wins because of, again, the intangibles, the emotion of the game. I like the Badgers.
Kirk, you'll be jetting off to West Lafayette, where Purdue's going to try to beat a ranked team for the first time in the last 14 games. Try to win a big October game. It hasn't happened. What's the key to the game today?
I think the atmosphere in West Lafayette is essential. They need to maintain the momentum and the crowd, which means Purdue has to start fast, win the first quarter. And their quarterback, Curtis Painter, has never seen this kind of atmosphere and this kind of defense. How he plays will be essential for the Boilermakers to try to pull off this upset at home.
You're going to see one of the top 3 teams in the nation tonight. Ohio State is as good as anybody in the country. They're going to clobber Purdue.
Clobber. Another disappointment for Purdue.
Remember your
It's on ABC. Close until the very end, but then they clobber.
There you go.
Who's going to win this game, which is a tough ticket? Ticket price is still more than $400 out on the street here. Thousands of people won't even be able to get in. It's a big ball game, and in play, those 3 dreaded words in SEC country. No, not Delta Atlanta connection, but like that, when you go Night Tiger Stadium, count on disappointment, count on an unsuccessful venture in here, and we're going to see what happens with the Gators coming off that loss, trying to get back on track against an LSU team and an LSU crowd that will be loud and supremely confident coming into this game.
It's almost too obvious a pick here. If you add up things, Florida is reeling, looked awful last week at home against Auburn. LSU is all ready to celebrate. They're on their way to a national championship season. They get Florida at home at night. It's so obvious to pick LSU, but in the theme of 2007, expect the unexpected. The Gators come to Baton Rouge and knock off LSU. Gators win over LSU.
Ooh, I don't think they heard that. Say it one more time.
The Gators win with Tim Tebow over LSU.
Let me tell you something. I love Louisiana pralines. I love the Golden Band from Tigerland. I love these Tiger fans. Give me that hit.
LC going with the home team. I remind people, back-to-back weeks, Kirk, you've called it, Georgia
Gators. We'll see. A lot of football to be played.
All right, enjoy your Gut Check Saturday. Games all over the landscape with deep meeting. Coming up right now on ESPN2, the Hurricanes try to dodge the upset trap in Chapel Hill. And we're going to see what's going to happen. Wisconsin and Illinois in Champaign. Kickoff there right now. Bedlam here today in Bata. Enjoy your football Saturday.